Mr. Kip Sorensen, it's good to be back, man. Hope everything's going well for you.
Yeah, everything's going well for you, man. Dave Ramsey, huh? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that one that released as of this release. That one released yesterday. So yeah, I
Okay.
spent last week. I spent some time in Nashville visiting Dave Ramsey and his team. It was incredible. Like I don't know if you've ever seen that place.
His facility. Our office, so our Nashville offices are used to be right next door almost to his original headquarters. And then these new ones I have not we're in the general area, but I haven't seen. No.
Oh man, it's beautiful. Like you
Yeah.
walk in, it's just beautiful. His studio is right there. And then John Delaney and Ken Coleman have their studio right next door, but they have these big glass walls essentially. So people come in there every day. They come in and they listen and watch him record live right there, do his 3 hour show.
Oh, and they'll just watch and listen.
They'll just watch. Yeah.
Okay.
So I did a podcast with Dave, and I did John's show and Ken's show, and I did Entree Leadership. So I went on those three shows. And by the time I got done, Dave was in the middle of his 3 hour block. And yeah, I went out into the lobby area, and there was probably 20, 30 people there, all just watching the show. And that's where they do the debt-free scream and all that. It was really interesting.
That's cool. So you
Yeah.
did 3 shows all while there.
Well, I did 4. I recorded with Dave for this podcast, and then I did 3 of their shows. So it was packed in like a 5 hour or so window, 5-6 hour window. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Congrats,
Yeah.
man.
So I did that. No, it's cool. And then another change is we just got a new dog actually yesterday.
Saw that as well on the Insta. At Ryan Mickler, by the way. Major,
right.
is that right?
Major is his name. And we didn't name him that. That's his name. So when Sarge died, a week or two later, Mike Herman, he's with Bottom Line K9. So he reached out and he said, hey, I don't want to be, he kind of felt a little awkward about it with Sarge. Yeah, right. So he's like, I'm not trying to press on you or anything, but we've got this dog here that we were going to give to a veteran, and he ended up not being able to take it, or something had fallen through, and asked if we were interested. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, Sarge just died. And he's like, I get it. He's like, it's here. We have the dog. Why don't you guys think on it? Talk with your family. And so my wife and I and the kids all talked, and, we decided, maybe we can. We've always been dog people. And so he's an 18-month-old German Shepherd. Again, his name is Major. And so Mike with Bottom Line K9, they came out. They came out yesterday, drove out from Mike did and Major from New Mexico, 39 hours on the road, and brought this dog over to us last night. And we had dinner together. We had a lobster dinner because that's what we do. So if you ever get invited to the Mickler household, you're going to eat lobster. Yeah. So came out, dropped the dog off, gave us a little brief and a little intro and everything else just to see how the dog would do. And then he actually headed out, like right out. He left. He's like, hey, there you go. And then headed out. So pretty incredible.
That's
so awesome. The dog's well behaved. He's well trained. He's hyper. He's like really hyper, which is understandable. That's how Sarge was. But yeah. If you guys need like dog training or anything, I mean, these guys do awesome work. So he's in the Air Force. He's transitioning out of the Air Force. And they've got this canine training program. So it's a bottom_line_K9, bottom_line_K9. Yeah, check them out. They're in New Mexico, but did a great job with Major. And yeah, we're excited to have him as part of the family.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
So lots going on over here.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Should we get into it?
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, I really enjoyed your guys' podcast last week, except for the 7 minutes I had to hear you guys complain about who was more sick, and then the show Hamilton, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell is this?
Like, I had to bring it up while you were on.
I leave for a week and I hear you guys bitching and moaning about how sick you feel and talking about these woke people with Hamilton. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, there goes about 20% of our listeners.
Yeah.
So
I think
come back, guys. Come back.
I figured you weren't polished enough to have a conversation around Hamilton. So I thought I better bring this up now with Sean.
Look, I like a play as much as the next person, I suppose. Tuacahn, you've been to Tuacahn, I'm sure, in Southern Utah.
Yeah, down in
so
St.
we did.
I have never. I know of it, but I've actually never been down there. I heard it's really great.
Oh, are you serious? Oh yeah, you need to go.
I've never been.
Yeah. If you like play, like you need to go. They do a great job. They put on a great production. It's right against Snow Canyon, so it's an outdoor amphitheater. Up against the Red Rock. Yeah, it's incredible. Sure. So I like plays. I just Hamilton, I don't know, man. Like every time I hear about Hamilton in the news, it isn't about the play. It's about all their woke policies or the woke perspective bullshit. And I'm like at this point, and look, I get it. I think generally more in the acting space, maybe this is just too broad of a generalization, are probably generally going to be more left leaning. That's like I would imagine.
And any opportunity of virtual signals, they'll latch on to it in a second.
But I'm kind of at this point where, I think the left, and this is not to be confused with liberals, okay, there's a difference between being a leftist and being a liberal. But I think the left has played this game so long of this cultural warfare where they'll go after and they'll dox people and they'll boycott companies and they'll play that game as a strategy to hurt conservative outlets. And you even see it in social media and being shadow banned and kicked off Twitter and whatnot. And they're willing to play that game, but the right isn't willing to play that same cultural game. At least they haven't been. And I think the right actually needs to do that.
Totally.
And I'm to the point now where I'm less and less every day inclined to spend money with an organization or a company that is at direct odds with what I believe, and they willingly invest their time, energy, resources, money into doing away with some of the elements of culture that I think are valuable. So I'm more and more serious about that. So when you guys are talking about it, I'm like,
you know what?
I'm sure the play's great. I don't know, but
it was actually quite great. But on a related note, John at Warrior Poet Society, he made a post the other day on social media, and I actually like it really resonated with me. And it was a comment about someone that left him a message saying, John, I love you guys' content, blah, blah, blah. But, now it's you're pulling politics in and you're making it political or whatever. And I'm paraphrasing, and go check out John for the actual verbiage.
Yeah, I'm actually on it right here. So it's John Lovell
way more
_ WPS. Yeah, I'm on it right now. I can't remember which thing it is, but
and I'm sure it's more eloquent coming from him. But what I got out of it, at least, was where he was like, it's unfortunate sometimes, like how taking a stand for what's right is now political. And I'm like, that's a really good point, right? Like whether it's politics or not, just because someone else made it about politics doesn't mean us standing up for what's right and being honorable and taking a stand doesn't matter if it's political or not, right? Like that is actually probably what we should be doing. And I really like that, because far too often we even create those polarizations of like, oh, well, it's political, so I'm going to stay away from it. Well, you know what? People have politicized everything. So what, you're just not going to talk about anything that has to do with politics, even if it's dishonorable or whether it's a good cause?
Yeah, I agree. I think men have a responsibility to get involved, at least to some degree, politically, because those decisions are impacting our day-to-day lives. And so what are you going to do? You're just going to sit around and let all that stuff happen because you're part of the quote unquote silent majority? No, like wake up, speak up, share your perspective. I'm not going to say the truth, but share your opinion, share your perspectives, get other people behind what it is you're doing, and start to be a little bit more loud and vocal about this stuff. Because, and I made this comment to somebody the other day about, I can't even remember what they said, but they were talking about being civil in politics, or the way that I had worded something about that new White House report about how many jobs they've created. They didn't like it. They thought it was rude or inflammatory or something along those lines. And I said, look, maybe, but I'm not going to quietly and politely let all of my rights be infringed upon because I don't have the balls to do anything about it, or I just want to make sure everybody feels good. That's not even with this podcast. My goal is not to make you feel good. My goal is to get you to win in politics. My goal isn't for you to feel comfortable with the way that I see things. It's to challenge the way that you see it, and then to share what I believe is the best thing for this country and the people inside of it. It's never been about making people feel good. And we've placed niceness and politeness and civility at the top of the list of virtues in society. And it's created just this incredibly pathetic, weak, cowardly environment. And the only people who are willing to actually stand up for what they believe are vile, disgusting, gross people who want to push all of their stuff on everybody else who's too polite to do or say anything about it. And that's not me.
Totally. Yeah. And politeness doesn't serve them, right? In those examples, we got to be very careful of that. It's one of the things that I can't stand when I think about like corporate America's typical HR department. It is a department of well, what's the term I use? Of pandering. It's the pandering department. Oh, okay. Let's pander. Let's make sure that there's anyone that might potentially be offended. Let's pander to them. Let's not enable them. Let's not promote critical thinking. Let's not push back of ownership. Let's just pander. And it doesn't serve people to be pandered to, right? And to walk around eggshells around them. That doesn't empower us to grow in any particular way, or encourage even critical thinking for that matter, or even ownership. So
agreed. All right. Well, let's get into the questions, man.
All right. Sounds good.
Off
all right.
That
Ryan,
soapbox.
Yep. Ryan Gent. In the past, I've really struggled with breaking promises to myself. It's wreaked havoc on my confidence and my ability to believe in myself. More importantly, it's gotten in the way of me giving myself credit for all the good that I've accomplished and progress I've made, because I struggled to shift focus from where I've let myself down. How do you practice believing in yourself?
Well, so let's be really clear on that phrase. How do you practice believing in yourself? And then everything you said leading up to it kind of made it sound like even though you're breaking promises to yourself, you still want to believe in yourself. Yeah. That's a little bit how that's worded. And I don't know if you intended it that way or not, but if you did, that's the wrong way to do it. Yeah. Because what you're going to do, go ahead, Kip.
Well, I was just going to say, maybe you provide clarity on your opinion of what does believing in yourself mean? Are we talking confidence?
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
There's more to it than that. Okay.
No, sure, there's an element of faith, but faith draws upon, I think your faith can be strengthened through past performance, right? So let me give you an example. Yeah. Let's say I wanted to start an entirely new career. I wanted to become a fitness trainer, for example. For whatever reason, that's what I wanted to do. Well, I've never done it before. So what right do I have to believe in myself that I can make that a success and do well with it and serve a bunch of people in the process? Even though I've never done it before, I've done other things, right? I've done this podcast. I had a successful financial planning practice. I'm a successful father. I'm involved in my community. Like I try to serve, like there's things that I've done. I have a track record of success. Yeah. And I think it's fair to say at this point, at the risk of sounding arrogant, that if I throw my hat in the ring with something else based on my track record of success, I'm pretty much sure I'm going to figure this out. Yeah. Right. And that's believing in yourself. A little bit of faith. Hey, I've never done this before. I'm going to take a leap of faith and do it, but also a level of confidence that I've earned over the last 4 decades of my life. But if you don't have that track record of success and you failed in different opportunities and different businesses, like you're not just going to be able to talk yourself in to believing in yourself. And I think that's what a lot of people do when they use these positive self affirmations and like the body positive movement is a great example of that. You know, you have somebody who's 50 or 60 pounds overweight or more, like severely obese. And there's other people out there, whether it's a podcast or a book and other mediums, and they're telling these individuals, well, you should just learn to be happy with yourself. And so you have this severely obese, unhealthy person walking around pretending they're happy with their fat rolls on their body, pretending they're satisfied with being sick more than they need to, pretending that they're actually performing well when they've greatly reduced and diminished their ability to perform because they're unhealthy. Okay, that person knows, even though they're looking in the mirror and they're putting on the little painting on their fake smile and patting themselves on the back and telling themselves in the mirror they're special, they know deep down inside that they're not. And they're not doing what they should be doing. And they're not doing what they could be doing. And they're not being the kind of person they really, truly deep down inside have a desire to be. And that conflicting message creates all sorts of mental health problems.
Yeah.
So the best way to do it is not to lie to yourself. And that's what the body positive movement is. Not to lie to yourself, but to be truthful. And it's hard. It's really hard to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, Ryan, you have been on a path of destruction for the past 5 years. And you're overweight, you're out of shape, you're not healthy, you're not producing, you're tired, you're taking years off your life. Like, nobody wants to do that, but that is what's required. But let's come back to the question. What you need to do is you need to do an after action review every day, every single day. And you need to look at your last 18 hours or whatever it was and write down a few things. What promises did I make to myself today? And a promise can be as simple as, like, I'll pull this out to show you. You know, here's the battle planners, right? So all these things, it's having a hard time because of the light, but all these things right here, there's like 10 tasks I need to do today. Those are promises to myself. Now, I might not get them all done today, but this has got to be done this week. And so if I get all of those done today, I'm actually going to feel better about myself because I kept my promise. So what you do is you ask yourself at the end of the day, what promises did I make to myself? What promises did I keep? And you should feel good about that. Even if it's something simple, like I went and got the oil on the car changed. Or, you know, I took out the trash because there was a lot of trash in the house and my wife asked me if I'd help out and take the trash out. Or you went on a walk after dinner and you said you were going to, and you did that. Those are promises kept. And then, but you also need to look at the promises that you broke, not to beat yourself up, but to say, okay, those, I missed those. So I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to reset and I'm going to keep those promises tomorrow. And here's my strategy for doing it. So it's a very tactical approach to building confidence and belief in yourself, but you have to be truthful. You cannot delude yourself.
Right. Why not beat yourself up? Why do you intentionally call that out?
If you beat yourself up, you get deflated and you assign to yourself.
You almost throw your hands up.
Yeah, because you're a loser, right? I've said that about myself. I'm like, oh, I didn't get this thing done. I'm a loser. No, you lost, you know, you failed. I'm not ever afraid to say I failed. People don't like that. So they do like first attempt in learning and
I learned
all kinds of weird, fail fat forward or whatever. Like, no, I mean, I get it. I know what you're trying to say, but I don't attach a bunch of significance to failure. I think that's why generally I'm willing to try new things that I don't think a lot of people are willing to do, because I don't give failure more weight than it deserves. But some people do. And then that's why they try to diminish it by saying, oh no, I didn't, there is no failure if you learn from it. No, you still fell short of your mark. That's failure.
Yeah.
But to your question, when you start labeling yourself as a failure or a loser or a fat ass or any of these derogatory terms towards yourself, it deflates you. So one of my buddies, I think it was either Sal or Adam with Mind Pump Media, he was talking, because they do a lot of fitness stuff. And he was saying, you know, we tell our clients that they're not fat, they have fat. See the difference? It's nuanced,
for sure.
but that difference is important. I am fat means that you're defined by it. It's a label. I have fat means, yes, you have some fat on your body that you need to do something about. Yeah. So we don't want to deflate ourselves by beating ourselves up that way. We just want to take an objective analysis. I have fat, no meaning to it other than I got to lose that weight. And here's exactly how I'm going to do it.
Let me run this by you for Ryan, because I think whenever we are out of integrity, it has to be justified, right? We have to have the excuse, the story. We have to blame someone. Would that be valuable from your perspective as well in the after action review for Ryan to look back at his day and say, you know, because what if he didn't add it on the list? Or that's what I'm getting at, is there's probably a bunch of stuff that happens to our day that we are breaking promises with ourselves. And sometimes it didn't make it on the list, so we don't even know about it. Right. But I would argue that if your plan was to get up at 6, whether you put it on the list or not, and come 6 a.m., you justify not working out, that's a broken promise. Right. So all of these little nuances where, you know, you should do something and an excuse was attached to it because you failed to take action, I would suggest would probably be items that you'd want to evaluate.
Yeah. So I was just taking notes as you were saying this. I don't know if this is the best word, but I'm trying to frame this in a way that would help, that helps me, that has helped me, is that your integrity has to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Like it has to.
Yeah.
Reconciled. Right. So, so here's what people do. I'm out of integrity. I didn't do the things I said I was going to do today. And so in order to reckon with it or to reconcile, it's because, you know, this thing outside of my control happened. You know, the power on the internet, you know, or the power in the house, or the internet was down, or my wife needed me to do some other things. So I didn't get enough. So that's right. So you're reconciling it. But here's another way you can that's not a healthy way to do it. Okay. Because that stuff may have happened, but that doesn't justify you not keeping your promise. It may shift how you do it, but it doesn't justify it. Another way that you can reconcile with your integrity is by fixing the problem. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Like I said, I was going to start that podcast today and I didn't. So how do I reconcile with it? Start the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah. Go do it
right
today,
now,
or do it later today. Yeah.
I mean, I feel the same way when I'm writing, because a lot of guys know I'm in the midst of writing a book. I've got a short deadline at this point to hit, and it'll come out later this year. And so I've made it a goal, just like I did with my previous book, to write 1,000 words per day. Okay. Well, over the weekend, I missed a day. And so of course I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm feeling bad and I'm feeling guilty. And then I'm distracted and I can't be fully present with my family. And so I'm out of integrity. So do I lie about it and say, it's okay, I'll catch up, no big deal, I deserve a break? Or do I reconcile it by fixing the integrity that I was out of alignment with? So this morning I got up, I wrote 1,000 words. I'm 1,000 words into it today. It's 11 o'clock where I'm at, 11:45. And then this afternoon, I've got another little block. I'm going to write another 1,000 words to make up for yesterday. And guess what? When I put my head on that pillow tonight, I'm going to feel infinitely better than I did yesterday, because not only did I get my work done today, I reconciled my integrity issue from yesterday. And that's how you fix it. Another way, there's one other example. If you wrong somebody and you feel guilty about it, let's say you stole from them, or you talked poorly about somebody, or you threw somebody under the bus, or you took credit for something that wasn't yours, and you wronged somebody, that's an integrity issue. You're going to experience guilt for that. You could either justify it by saying, well, that person's an asshole, so they deserved it. Or you can reconcile it by going to that person and saying, here's what I did, and I'm sorry, and I messed up, and then actually fix it. So like if you took credit for something that you don't deserve, let's say I took credit for your work, Kip, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to apologize. Not a blanket apology, like directly to you, because you were the person who was harmed by my behavior. And then I'm going to go to our team leader and I'm going to say, hey, Joe, you know, yesterday we were having a conversation and I think I took credit for something I should not have taken credit for. And really, Kip was the one who headed this up, and he made these things, and came up with these resources. I supported him here and here, but I really want to make sure that the credit goes to where it's deserved.
Yeah.
Integrity reconciled. You're good.
Yeah. What's so powerful about this, Ryan, is people don't look at the long game of this problem. So they'll think that if I'm out of integrity today, well, then, when I go to sleep tonight, I'm not going to feel good about myself. No. It's much greater than that. For you to feel okay about in this example, for you to feel okay about taking credit for something that you shouldn't have taken credit for, you have to hold on to the idea that I'm an asshole until you're willing to take ownership. So a week from now, guess what I am? I'm still the asshole. And you have to hold on to it until you're willing to take ownership. And we see this with adults. 45 years old, mom and dad, they were all this way when I was a kid. And they hold on to baggage. Why? Because that baggage is the justification of them not taking ownership of their lives in some unique way.
Right.
We will destroy relationships and we'll hold on to that shit for a really long time until you're willing to take ownership over something. And it's more than just the day, right? It's your life that you will drag this shit along.
Well, and it's other people's lives too. So take a marriage. Yeah. Let's say that you and your wife are really struggling. You're having a hard time connecting and being intimate, and you're having a hard time. And so in a moment of weakness, you decide to step out on her and you cheat on her. And you can't live with yourself because of the guilt of that. And I can certainly understand why you would feel that way.
Yeah.
And so you feel guilty about that. And rather than fessing up, you put it on her. Well, she's a bitch and she's done all this stuff. And then you go through a divorce. Okay. And then she's still a bitch and she ruined your life and she took your kids and your money and like all this stuff, right? That you're saying potentially because you just weren't willing to admit your part of it.
Yeah.
Not absolve her of what her issues, because there is, but just because you didn't take, and to your point, I've seen people who have been divorced for decades that are still just so much contention and animosity. And I'll hear guys say, well, it's her. Yeah, probably, because she's probably engaged in the same type of behavior that you are. She's calling you an asshole. You're calling her an asshole. And you've been doing it for so long that you don't even know who the asshole is anymore. Well, you both are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. In fact, when you were sharing about like the labels that we put on ourselves, if you really think about it, even that label is the excuse too. Well, I did this. Well, I'm a loser. Like, it's almost like I'm the loser. The label of give myself a loser is my justification. Well, you know what? This is translation. This is just the way I am.
Yep. And I can't fix it.
I can't
change.
I can't
get better.
I can't. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It's really just an excuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Question number 1 in the books.
Yeah.
45 minutes later.
Billups. Yeah. Josh Billups. I know. Ryan's like, holy shit, guys. Like you went, hey, it's integrity.
It's a good question.
Yeah. It's there.
And it's important to discuss.
Yeah. All right. Josh Billups. I'm new to the IC and I've realized how much in life it was not necessary. How much in life was not necessary and causing me to diffuse my focus. Okay, so things in his life that aren't necessary. Things like material goods, limiting thoughts and habits, and etc. Do you have tools or practices that help with reducing the clutter of life that can distract you?
I hate to beat a dead. Actually, I don't hate to beat it. It's the battle plan.
Yeah.
That's what I'm using. Like, I have it, right? This is what I use. Okay. So I use the battle plan and it keeps me hyper focused on everything that I need to be doing in 4 specific areas of my life.
I see.
Myself, my fitness, my relationships, and the way I want to add value in this world. Those are the 4 areas.
So what I'm hearing is the battle plan by having the intentionality that comes with having an active battle plan by default that restricts you from being distracted because you're focused, right? That you're being intentional with in regards to what you need to do.
Yeah. I think it does help distraction, of course, but it also is a powerful litmus test for everything you're doing in your life. So naturally, it's going to reduce the distractions because you're so hyper-focused on that thing.
Yeah.
But that's not to say things won't come up. They will still come up, and you'll be tempted to be distracted by them. And as you are, you go back, you pull this out, whether it's the app or the paper version or whatever, you pull it out and you look at it and you're like, nope, doesn't align with what I want. Next. Or another opportunity comes in. It's like, oh yeah, okay, let me measure it against this plan I have. Oh yeah, that one actually is going to help me accomplish what I want to accomplish. Yes, I'll say yes to that one. That's it. And so you learn to say no and you learn to say yes. You know, for example, I've gotten a lot of requests over the past month or so, even maybe 6 weeks, for me to come do podcast appearances, go on other people's podcasts, which I say yes to like 98% of them. If I said no to yours, maybe, I don't know, maybe you caught me on a bad day or something, but I say yes to like 98% of the podcasts that reach out, and I don't even ask about their audience. Like, no, yes, I'll come do your podcast. But this month I've said no to all of them. No, thank you. No. Why? Because I'm focused on the book. And I'm so clear about that. I have my goals. I have my daily tactics. I have everything in place. And now I have a litmus test. You need me to do this? Nope, can't do it. You can reach out in February or March, but now's not the time. Oh, well, can we schedule? No. What did I just say? I said, you can reach out to me in February or March. And some people think that's harsh. To me, that's just a level of conviction. Like, I don't say it rude to them, but it's just a level of, no, I know what I want. And going on your podcast right now is not what I want. It's not in the cards. So no, thank you. Reach out to me in February or March. It's awesome. Like, it's so liberating, and nobody knows how to do it.
Yeah. Versus you being a yes man and then stringing yourself out, being stressed out because you're shifting your priorities. You're all over the place because you're trying to appease people.
That's right. And, you guys have all been there where you have something happening, this afternoon, for example, and you're dreading it because you should have said no to it, but you didn't. You said yes. And while I commend you for trying to honor your word, you should. If you said yes, then you should do it.
Yeah.
Make better decisions next time. That's it.
Greg Steed, how do I work
Did
through?
we answer his question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the way I took it is
the battle plan. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, by being hyper focused and clear on your priority. And when you do what you're focused on, then you're not distracted.
Right.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yep.
So, all right, Greg Steed, how do I work through the self-improvement lethargy? I've been on the be my best self path for several years. I find myself just tired of the books and not using the information I know. There's a part of me that wants to take a break, but I don't want to go backwards.
Yeah, there is definitely like this, I would just call it self-help exhaustion. I've been there. I saw an email the other day or an Instagram post or something, and it was like 200 books you should read in 2022.
200 books?
Come on now.
Yeah.
200. Yeah. Give me 3 books I should read next year.
Yeah.
Like, get 3. I don't need 2. I need 3 really good books. And that's what I should be reading. The other thing is, you don't need to fix everything about your life immediately and all right now. Pick 2 things that you want to improve about your life. And interestingly enough, as you do, other areas of your life start to improve as a result of the focus on the 2 things. It's just an ancillary benefit to you focusing on a couple of things. So that's part of it, is just instead of going wide and broad with your self-development journey, go deep. I picked up the guitar again, Kip, by the way, and I've really been enjoying it over the past, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, but I'm not going to play every instrument known to man that I've ever had any sort of interest in. I'm going to pick one and I'm going to go deep on that. And I may continue to do it. And down the road, I may say, nah, I'm no longer interested in that. And then I can go deep with something else, but just don't go broad. Like, narrow it down and go deep. That'll help. The other thing will help is, it's like the self-help guru guys and Insta gurus and all this may not like this when I say it, but like, you don't need to be 100% dialed in. You need to be like 93% dialed in. Like that, unless you're competing for I don't like some sports competition where you're you're going to be in the Olympics. Okay, those guys needed 100% dialed in, but even then, it's only short bursts.
Yeah.
So you need to be like 93% dialed in on your health, on your nutrition, on your budget. Like, you can live your life, you can enjoy it. You know, if you see a donut and you want a donut, eat a donut. Just don't eat all of the donuts. Just eat one once a week. You know, if you see a purchase that you want and it's just kind of random, maybe even a little silly, and you're like, no, I want that. Look at your budget. If you can afford it and you have everything locked in, your debt's paid off, you're building wealth, you're saving money, you're investing correctly, you have businesses and real estate, and you want to buy a little silly thing like, I don't know, a piece of artwork that really speaks to you, but you know, is it in your self-help journey? Like, buy the damn artwork and enjoy life a little bit. 93%, 7%, man, that's for you.
Yeah. All right. Frederick Bocher. What's a good step to break paralysis by analysis?
Well, it starts with you not asking that question. Like you're analyzing funny. Even in the question.
Yeah, that's funny.
So you know what to do, right? Do it. And if you don't know what to do, pick something and do it.
Just start.
And then evaluate it. And then just evaluate it. Like, oh, that didn't work like I wanted to. I got to pick something else. Or no, that worked great. I'm going to double down on that. But stop asking those questions. Like, pick something and do it.
I think for some people, it's rooted in the idea that there's value in the analysis and that they actually will know all that they need to know before getting started. And the reality of it is you don't know what you don't know. And I, you know, so many of the guys have already heard this story so many times about you starting the podcast, but it's like the perfect example of it, right? Is that your first podcast, if you didn't just take the action and do a podcast on finances, you wouldn't have gotten in the medium of like, hey, I really love this podcast thing, but I want to change the subject. If you sat back and tried to figure it out, like, you would have never known what Order Man may have never gotten started if you didn't take action first and figure out a different avenue that you wanted to take. And so sometimes I think it's folly for us to think that like we can analyze the hell out of it and we'll find the right answer. The reality of it is you're not going to know what you don't know until you actually just start.
And even if you get everything right, like right out of the launch, something's going to change. There's going to be a variable that changes, and it's going to completely change all of your formulas and spreadsheets and whatever it is you put together to determine what you should act on. It's like that movie. You remember Along Came Polly?
Yeah.
And he literally created like a sheet about this woman that he really liked. And he's like, here's the pros and here's the cons. And he wrote all this stuff down. And then she eventually saw it. And of course she was insulted. And it's like, you don't need a sheet, bro. Like, you love this woman, you know, you're intrigued, you're fascinated. Like, see where it goes. Same thing with the business. Like, should I start a podcast? Should I start a blog? People say that all the time. Which social media thing, which podcast, which ones do you like the most? Pick that one. Well, I just want to make sure it's right. Well, you know, doing it is better than thinking about it. And you're going to get better at it. And also the one you like or feel compelled to do is the one you're actually going to do and stay with it for longer periods of time. So don't pull a, whatever that guy's name is on Along Came Polly. Like, do the thing.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Charles Phillips II, do you have any advice regarding writing? I'm starting to draft my first book and would love to hear any advice you may have regarding getting started, submissions for publications, or any pitfalls you ran into, and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah. So like, I'm not a great writer. I wouldn't say that isn't like my wheelhouse. I will do it and I can do it fairly decently because I don't know. Maybe it's just, I know the material, or the way I say things that maybe resonates with people. Maybe that's what it is. I don't exactly know why, because I'm really not a great writer. At least I don't think I am. So that's always been a challenge for me. So the thing that I did with my book, and I can just tell you what I did with my book, whether it works for you or not, I don't know. You're gonna have to try it and experiment and see what other people have to say. Again, don't get into paralysis. Like, at some point you just got to put pen to paper, right? Yeah. Or zeros and ones to the computer screen. Like, at some point you got to do something. But in the fairness of the question, I think it's a good question. I come up with an outline first, knowing that it's going to change. And I found, even now, I'm this late in the writing process,
and you've changed your outline already.
And still, it's still changing. It's still evolving. Not largely, but there's like little tweaks and changes where I had 12 of these characteristics that I was going through. I'm like, I don't think I need 12. I think I'd rather do 10 and just go deeper on those. And then also that 11th characteristic is really very similar to the second one. So I'm just going to incorporate the two. So you learn that, for me, as you go. And then it's just writing. For me, it's no less than 1,000 words per day. I just told you sometimes I miss that, but it's 1,000 words per day. And I've noticed that as I do that, it's becoming easier and easier. When I start doing that, it's hard. It's grinding. It would take me hours and hours to get through 1,000 words. I could get through 1,000 words in probably 45 minutes to an hour. And they're good, like good words, good stories, good words, et cetera, et cetera. So
are you writing things out as though it's a draft, or do you just like throw thought to paper with the idea that you need to come back and fine tune it when you're writing?
No, I mean,
do you get what I'm saying?
Depends on what you mean by fine tune. If you mean like round out a story, no, I stay on it until I'm done with it.
You try to have good polish the first pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't want to come back to it and
then I have to hash through it all over again.
Yeah. I have a team that's doing like the line editing. I have another developmental editor that I hired to help me with just make sure that it looks good and it flows well. And then I'll have another pass through with editing that will really take a look at it and say, okay, well, you need to expand on this. You need to get rid of that. And they'll help me with some of this stuff. So what I'm trying to turn in, and when I write a chapter, for example, and that usually takes me about 3 days on average, is what I'm kind of coming up with, about 3,000 words, maybe 35, somewhere in there. But when I'm done with that chapter, I want to be largely done with that chapter.
Yeah. You want to be able to move on and not come back to it.
Yeah. And then my editors will look at it and say, okay, well, you didn't really like round that thought out, or you kind of rambled here. So like, get rid of that, round this thought out. That's what they're going to help me with.
Do you use the podcast and your social media posts as a testing ground of thought and idea? I've always wondered this about you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Cause I go through, when I post something, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, did that resonate? Did that land?
Yeah.
I actually might make another post 2 weeks later that's very similar to the first one, and just change the wording or even the image, just to see if that's more relatable to people. That's important to me. That's part of marketing, right?
Yeah.
But then also the messages that really hit, that really drive home, I incorporate those into the book.
You're like, how do I get that into the book? Because that is obviously meaningful to people. Yeah.
And so another practice I do is I go through and I pull out like a tweet or like a screenshot of a phrase that I used or something, and I'm like, oh, that was a good point. Yeah, that goes in chapter 13 part 2 or whatever, and I'll just drop it in there in notes, and eventually I'll get to chapter 13, but I'm going to drop things in there. And then there's one other strategy I use for writing that has really, really worked miracles for me, like amazing. So let's say I want to write 1,000 words per day. So I write my 1,000 words. I close out a section. Maybe I close out the chapter on that day. If I just leave my screen blank, when I come back tomorrow, it's like cold starting, like an engine. It takes a while. Or, we've got snow out here, and I I've got my snow plow, but we also have a snow blower, and I don't use it outside of winter. So every winter I gotta check, I gotta prime the oil, and I gotta like crank it and turn it on and like figure out why it's not starting. And then once it's started for the season, just like a lawnmower,
it's good to go. Yeah.
You're good. You're good to go. It's pretty much going to start after 1 or 2 tries every time. It's the same thing in writing. If you come to a blank page, it's like you're cold starting your thought process and your writing ability over every day. What a waste of time. So here's what I do. Let's say, again, I closed out the chapter. I will go in and I'll start either writing the first paragraph of the next chapter, or go in and just start dropping bullet points into the next chapter. And maybe I'll come with a half paragraph tomorrow, or maybe there's just 5 bullet points, or maybe it's just part of a story that I thought would relate really well with that particular subject. So then I come to sit down to write, and I'm never coming to a blank page ever. I don't have blank pages. I'm always coming to a page that at least has some thoughts. It's kind of like priming the pump. It just has some thoughts to get me flowing, to get me writing. And that's made me way more efficient in my writing ability.
Cool. All right.
And also you forget things too. Like if you don't write them down, you're going to forget about them. So if I'm thinking about something at night, I'm like, oh man, that one story that happened to me that one time, that would really go well with this particular section of the book. I got to write it down. And so I have a notepad in my phone for if I'm just sitting around or doing something else. I'm not in front of my computer, in front of the manuscript, and I'll just write it down so that I can plug it in when I get in front of my book.
Yeah. All right. Peter Shamburek. I find myself oftentimes falling in and out of the cycle of being the man I wish to be and the man I once was. I'll spend weeks training hard in the gym, putting in extra work hours, dieting well, only to be undermined by a depressive strait of low work ethic and poor diet. Any recommendations on how to stay on track after short bursts of success?
So I don't want to say you just slumps, stay on track, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really have that problem.
You don't ever get in the slumps, kind of.
Well, I do, but I don't have a problem.
But you still
stopping.
But you still execute, even if you're in a slump.
Like a slump is no excuse to throw in your hard work. It's like, the way you feel about it. I say that a lot. The way you feel about things is irrelevant to whether or not you're going to do them after you've committed to it. And usually, but here's one thing you could do is mix it up, so if you're on a particular diet, let's say, because he was talking about fitness and nutrition, right? So if you're on a particular diet, like I could see how that would get old.
Yeah. Dry chicken sucks after a while. Yeah.
Maybe you're eating chicken and broccoli and rice. Like maybe you've been eating that for 3 weeks. It's like, okay, maybe throw some fish in there and eat some yams, zucchini or something, or throw some venison on there. And instead of rice, maybe have beans tonight or something. Like that's what I'm saying. Just mix it up is what I'm getting at. And so you can still stay on track, but change up your tactic a little bit. And that might just re-energize and rejuvenate. So I'll go back to writing. Obviously, this is what's on my mind right now. So if I'm writing a particular chapter, this is another point to the previous question, and like I'm just feeling stumped or stuck, or like, I just want to be done with this, I'll go on to a different chapter. So I have chapters that I haven't written yet, but are still, I might be 300, 400, 500 words, or maybe even 1,000 words into another chapter before I even finished a previous one. Because I'd rather come back to it with a new perspective than just grind through it and put a bunch of shit on paper. So just mix it up. Like keep moving forward, but just mix it up. If you're running, if you're doing a marathon, for example, and you're running, well, okay, maybe you just got to change your tempo a little bit. Maybe you have to walk for a second, but you don't stop. You keep moving towards your goal. You just change it up a little bit so that you can keep driving on. Muscles are very much the same way. Like if I went to the gym and all I did was presses and variations of presses, like I did, dumbbell presses, and then I did a push press, and then I did a jerk, and then a clean and jerk. And like my muscles aren't, it's not, at some point you're going to have a law of diminishing return. So maybe go work your legs, still on the path to fitness, but then you can come back to your shoulders once they've had a chance to recover. It keeps you on the path, but changes it up enough so that you can still be efficient and still stay on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just one thought that might be beneficial. I can't remember where I got this from, but this thought crosses my mind when I'm lifting sometimes. And certainly when I'm not in the mood, right? When I'm at the gym and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm tired. I'm not feeling it, right? I'm not having a good workout. And I just think, do your best, forget the rest. Like, eliminate the meaning around how good my reps are and just do my max reps if that's the exercise. And that's it. Just do them. Don't worry about like what it means and I'm having
how
a bad
you feel about it,
how I feel about it. No, just do it. Yeah, it sucks, and I even think that, right? Like, I don't want to, like last year when Asia and I were doing that Lodajah race, it's like, I don't want to ride this bike. I do not want to do this. This sucks. And I just embrace the fact that it sucks, like this sucks, but I'm going to do it. And it's okay that it sucks. And it's okay that I don't want to do it, and just get it done.
And so here's one little mindset shift that I have cause I agree with you. I do that too and this helps me actually. Let's take writing again. Like there's days I don't want to, and I do it, but you know what? That's why I have a book and there's millions of people who wish they did.
Yeah.
Or, days I don't want to go.
Does not want to do. Yeah.
Right. Or days that, like you don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you have those days, but
yeah, for sure.
But you went anyways. That's why you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And there's a bunch of people who are stuck in the proverbial, white belt or the perpetual white belt stage. Cause they go and then they stop because it's hard. And then 6 months later, they're like, oh, maybe I should go back. And they go back for 2 or 3 months. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'm getting better. I like this. Oh, but all this other stuff's getting in the way. And then a year later, they're like, oh yeah, I was training and then I stopped. No, the reason that you're a black belt is because you go regardless of how you feel. And so when I'm sitting there doing stuff I don't want to do, even podcasting, I'm not feeling great today, but I'm here. Well, this is why we have a top ranked show, because I show up when I don't want to show up. If all I did was show up when I wanted to show up, instead of having 850 podcasts recorded, we'd have like 75. It's maybe not that, maybe not quite that, but
you get the point. A lot less. Yeah.
And I would be significantly worse at this skill. And so I'm willing to show up, even though, True. Like I've done podcasts from like, that just wasn't a great podcast. Like my energy was down, or maybe I did an interview and I asked bad questions, or didn't even have a great guest or so, something. And so you do it anyways, and you put it out there and you learn from it.
Yeah. Well, and not only learn from it, but like in your example, I've said this to you numerous times where, there's been cases where I record solo, I get done and I'm like, yeah, man, I wasn't feeling it. I didn't have good energy. And if it were up to me, I probably would have released it. Right. I would probably been like, we're skipping this week. That app sucked, but I know I can't do that because you wouldn't let me. And then ironically enough, I get flooded with message. That was so great. And I'm like, what? And I didn't think it was great. I written it off as, worthless and a waste of time. And apparently that wasn't. So it's like, how off are we, So I don't know.
Well, and why do you think you get to decide what's great or bad for somebody else?
Good point.
Like, I think that I thought about that with the book is like, there's days I'm like, God, this isn't turning out good. Like, I don't like how this is like the whole thing. Like, I'm like,
you're not going to be the reader. Yeah.
No. And look, I'm not saying you just put out nonsense just because somebody might get value. Like you want to care. Work. Yeah. Right. Of course. But also there's going to be somebody, even if I put the worst book out in the world, and I hope it's not, like, I hope he doesn't even crack the top, 100 of that honor. But even if it's the worst book ever written, ever known to man, like there's going to be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who will read it. The worst book written ever. and will get something out of it and change their life because of it.
Yeah. If it's not that paragraph in that chapter or that story,
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, here's another thing to consider with the book writing stuff is I've been talking with some notable authors because, I want to get their opinion and their feedback and their perspective, just like this gentleman asked earlier. And he says, a couple of them said, Ryan, really, you just want to make sure the first like 20% of the book is like knock it out of the park.
Because it sets a precedence for the reader.
No,
like
I
their
wish,
excitement is.
I wish that was. It's because that's how many pages most people get through.
Which is kind of sad, but
it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's not an excuse to put together a sloppy 80% of the book. It's just make sure that first 20 kills it, because the average person doesn't get that far into a book. So a couple of authors that I talked with said, no, I really, really make sure I place heavy emphasis on that first part of the book.
Interesting. That's fun.
It is interesting. Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Take a couple more, Kip.
All right. This is a long one. Lance, and he'd apologize for it, but I actually think it's a really good question. And it kind of needs the backstory.
Let me say one thing about that. So you make a long post and then you apologize for it. So if you're sorry, you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And if you're not sorry, then don't say you are.
Yeah.
That's just an exercise in just being an assertive, confident person. So I'm not picking on Lance by any means, because we all do this. One of the things you hear all the time is like, well, I'm sorry, but I just don't agree with that. Why are you sorry about disagreeing? Like, are you really sorry? Yes. Yeah. Then don't say it, because you know it's going to hurt somebody. Or if you're not sorry, then don't say you're sorry. Like there's nothing to be sorry about.
Yeah. Another example of this is my son the other day. He's like, hey, sorry, I didn't put that away. And I'm like, are you really sorry?
Right.
And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, do you wish you would have put it away? AKA meaning next time you are going to put it away, or you're just sorry that I noticed and I'm frustrated. And you're just saying that but you're not really committed to actually putting shit away.
Right.
You're like, what do you mean really by sorry?
Yeah. I'm trying to say sorry as little as possible by doing two things. Not doing things I'm sorry for, or I know I'll be sorry for, and not saying sorry if I'm really not sorry about the action or the behavior or the words that I'm engaged in.
A sense of owning it. Yeah.
Why would I be sorry?
Yeah.
So
good point.
Proceed.
All right, Lance. Okay.
Now that we've beat
a while
you up
back,
on the sorry thing.
Yeah. A while back, Ryan hosted a podcast, the Friday Field Notes, I believe. And it was titled something along the lines of potential green flags for dating.
Yep.
The podcast seriously opened my eyes to exactly how many red flags I've overlooked marrying my wife. I've known prior to listening to the episode, I feel like I always have, but she got pregnant right after we got engaged, and I felt obligated to keep the family together. Possibly some of our own puppy love turning a blind eye to some things. But that episode just really struck home and really made me consider my future. And honestly, I'm not sure if I see one with her anymore. I love my wife. I love my family, and we've accomplished a lot in our short term together, 5+ years, but I just don't know if our relationship will ever be healthy and a fulfilling one. I joined the Iron Council July in 2020 to work on myself, become a better man, father, and husband, only to be met with resistance the entire time about the amount of time I was taking away from her and the things she wants me to do. Was I perfect at it? No, but it turns into a huge fight because I'm working out or reading or doing other things related to my battle plan. I eventually just gave up. I'm considering even leaving the Iron Council just because it's a waste of money, my time, and everyone else's time, and I'm taking up space that a more contributing member could hold. I don't know how to proceed from here. I'm firm in that I'm going to give it everything I have before giving up totally. But I also feel I have one foot out of the door as is. Breaking up my family is the last thing I want. I'm just not sure if it's ever going to be good enough for anyone. There's obviously a lot more to the story, but any insights, tips, and/or advice is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, man, there's a lot. Holy cow, there's a lot to unpack here, Lance, on this. let's break it down a little bit. You say I've got 1 foot out the door. Get it out of the door. Stop that. Like, go all in. Like this year, 2022, go all in, 100% in. I don't mean beer whipping, boy. I don't mean allow yourself to be abused. Not that that's even the case, verbally or emotionally or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know your situation. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying go all in with your family. Make your family the focus of your battle plan. Include them in the decisions that you're making. Get them involved in the same activities that are propelling you forward. Help her and your children connect the dots between your time away or your own personal work and how it's going to serve them. Try to inspire and lead your wife to find her own hobbies and activities and interests.
Support her. Yeah.
Right now, you guys sound like you're doing it alone. It sounds like you're doing your thing and she's doing her thing. And then you just happen to live together. That's what it sounds like to me. It's not how it should be. Yes, I have things that I'm interested in, and my wife has things that she's interested in, but I'm deeply committed and interested in what she is. Not because I enjoy it personally, but because I know it's good for her and it's good for the family. She knows that about the things I'm doing. So when I'm consumed with writing, or I go to jujitsu, or I'm training, or I'm on travel with business, they know that. But also I keep them updated. If I'm gone, I send them pictures. I show them funny and weird things from my trip. I send videos. I just send a little text and say, hey, I love you guys. My 2 oldest boys have their own phones. So like just randomly in the middle of the day, hey, bud, love you, miss you. Hope you're having a good day at school. Like I'm involved, even though I may not be present in that particular moment. But I'm not even going to say shit or get off the pot, because I don't want you to actually get off the pot. I want you to be there and be 100% in for 2022. And then you can make some decisions. You're going to have some decisions to make.
Know that you gave it your all. Yeah,
that's right. And so you also said you don't know if you have a future with her. That's right. You don't know. What you're saying is you don't think you do, but you actually said you don't know. And that's more accurate. You don't know. There's something about her you love. Right. Of course. There's something you love about her. There's something you saw in her. You have kids with her. You said it yourself. You don't want to break up your family. So because you don't know and you haven't done everything to figure it out, then you owe it to yourself. And you also owe it to her because you gave her your hand. So you better do that. And you better not leave the Iron Council because you're moping around feeling sorry about your own self-development journey. Now, if you don't like the Iron Council, it doesn't fit with your schedule or whatever, you don't have the money for it. Money's not even an issue because we have a scholarship fund. That there's no reason that you should leave the Iron Council. You should just use the tools better. Use them more effectively, use them better, talk with your battle team, join the right channels, talk with other guys who may have experienced what you're going through, and use those and make sure she and the kids are included in the process. This isn't your thing. No, there's no aspect of your life that is your thing. Jiu-jitsu, for example, is not my thing. It's our thing. She supports me in it. She knows how it makes me better. She encourages me in that thing. And I do the same for her because we're one of one flesh, right? As the scriptures say, we are one. We're not two, we're one. Make it that way for the rest of the year.
I like it. You mentioned something, Lance, towards the end. You said breaking up my family is the last thing I want to do. I'm just not sure if it's ever going to be good enough for anyone. I would suggest, and I don't know, but I would probably say that your wife has never communicated to you that you're not good enough for her. That's you. That's your interpretation. And so I'd be very mindful, like be self-aware of what you're thinking and what you're projecting on assuming what she thinks about you. And I don't know if this is the case. It's a consideration that this is your story and you've been holding on to that thing probably for a long time. And it's probably a story that would transcend this marriage. And even if you remarried the quote unquote perfect woman, that you probably still have a story of not being good enough. And so I would get clear in regards to where that's coming from, be clear on what she's communicating, and also be clear on her story. That's the other thing that's so powerful that we fail to realize sometimes is she's her own human and she has her own thought process. She has her own insecurities, and you leveling up might be generating some triggers for her. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't appreciate you. Doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It just means that she's running her own story and she's having her own triggers about you, becoming a better man, and she's not good enough.
Right.
So, there's danger obviously in psychoanalyzing everybody, but be aware, have some empathy and be aware of people's human nature. And be aware of where these are coming from, and make sure that you're not projecting a whole lot of meaning on how she's dealing with things, just to look for a self-fulfilling prophecy on your part, right? On some internal dialogue that you already have. So
great points. Excellent.
Cool.
One more. We got a good and quick one here.
Yeah. We got one. This is fun. Abe Garcia. What are the odds of having an in-house Order Man BJJ tournament, or maybe some battle team member super fights, maybe at the Origin camp?
I'm all about it. Let's do it. If you're coming to Origin Immersion Camp, which I think is it in August? I think it's in August.
Yeah.
I think that's right. End of August. Then let's make it happen.
We'll do it.
Also, I just gave a check to my neighbor who happens to be a general contractor who helped me build out a lot of this barn. I say helped me, who built a lot of this barn,
who did the small work.
He basically, picked up nails and lumber for me, and then I put it all together,
Yeah.
And anyway, so I just wrote him a check. He's building the third level of the barn out, and I'm having custom jujitsu mats ordered. And so all the jujitsu will be done in the barn itself, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be hot.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, Abe, has Abe been to an event? Because I almost feel as though every event kind of has a built-in jiu-jitsu tournament. Like I think about the old uprisings, right? They're virtually jiu-jitsu tournaments, right? So
that's all it is. Yeah. Well, when we did our last event, we always ask for feedback. So we do after action review forums on what we want the event to be and how we want to improve it. And the last one we did, the overwhelming responses were more jujitsu. So I'm always about that. We can do that.
Yeah.
Forget about PT. Like we'll do jujitsu every morning. That's fine.
Do jujitsu every morning. Yep.
I'm fine with that. I like that actually. So
yeah.
All right. We'll take it up, babe. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. All right. So just to wrap up, and we talked about a couple things. Ryan shared the battle planner. To get a battle planner, you can go to store.orderman.com or purchase the battle planning app at 12weekbattleplanner.com. That's the number 1 and 2 weekbattleplanner.com for the battle planner app. And as always, you can connect with Mr. Mickler on Instagram and Twitter. I was throwing out Getter now, but at Ryan Mickler is the social media handle. So connect with us and give us your feedback.
All right, guys. Good questions today. Hope we gave you some good answers, and we will be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.